Hey everybody, you're watching Conversations in Pop Culture, and I am your host, Andrew Davis, and this episode is brought to you by my sponsors, BCW Supplies. Use code POPANIMECOMICS to get 10% off your entire order. They do bags, boards, anything to protect your paper trading card goods. Use that code if you want to save 10% because inflation sucks. Also, I have my very own t-shirt right here. It's available on Redbubble. It's available in 16 different colors. It's making fun of Gundam, Taco Bell, the most interesting man in the world, and Fallout. So go check that out. And then finally, I am coming to Substack, Locals, and Udemy with my comic book investing class, where I'm going to teach you the basics of comic book investing. So that will be dropping October 5th. So if you're interested in all that fun stuff, go support it. And enough about all of that, because I have with me artist Tommy Bell. So welcome to the show.
How you doing, Andrew? It's nice to be here.
I'm excited. I'm excited because we're going to be talking about a little bit of lingerie, a little bit of MMA, a little bit of wrestling, maybe no clothes. I don't know. It's all good. It's all good here. And obviously, for those who don't know, you've done a bunch of work for Lingerie Fighting Championship, which I enjoy. It's an amazing company. If you haven't seen any of it, I recommend you go and watch some of it. But before we get into that, I am curious how you got into art because I know you go back to the 90s.
Yeah, actually, that's when. Okay, so starting back at its antithesis, I mean, I was drawing before I could form sentences. It was just scribble this, scribble that, and people would take notice, but I didn't really have anybody to show me the ropes in the art world until I was probably 10 or 11. And some people would show me some things, and I would take art classes because if you're in my world, it's an easy A. So I would take a whole boatload of art classes, not realizing I was actually learning something. I was just like, hey, look at my report card, guys. This is pretty cool. But so when I graduated high school, I won't say what year, but back then, I mean, I was just full of this idea that this is what I'm going to do, like, for a living, man, and this is going to be so cool because this is what artists go out, they draw draw all day. This is awesome and make a bunch of money, and this is fucking cool. Well, so I started it. It took a little bit, a couple of years after graduation, for me to really get my head on my shoulders and dive in. And as soon as I did, I had a ton of freelance. Now, this is back in the early 90s. There was no internet. There was no way to reach people. And I'm in the Midwest in a very sheltered kind of community. They're very reserved, whatever. And so I come along and I can draw. And the first thing that happened is I got hired by a bunch of companies, local companies, draw my logo, do this, do that, whatever. Da, da, da. And I got really bored with that really quick. And I said, I want to draw what I want to draw, which wound up being like this fantasy stuff and twisted somehow in some way. And a lot of my 90s portfolio I've never shown on social media. I've shown a few things here and there.
We're going to break that today.
Right, so I might start leaking some of that, but I've shared some stuff because some of it is just I either race through it or I'm not happy with it. I'm like, this fucking sucks. And then you want to bury it and then people want to see it. But I actually did a tear of drawings starting in about 1991 that took me through 2000. Back then, because we didn't have internet and I didn't have any way to communicate beyond, person number 15, so to speak, I was just, you see a photo in a magazine. All right, I'll use that and I'll draw that or whatever. So just doing what any other sheltered artist did and come up with a drawing, and that's that. I got burned out, though, because I couldn't reach people. I couldn't reach an audience. And the audience that I was reaching was going, holy fucking shit, dude. Like, you can't draw. Like, why don't you, and then like these, God bless them, these people coming up to you, why don't you draw, like some geese and ducks and maybe an Amish buggy? Because that's, what people want to hang on their wall. And I'm going. So I kept drawing what I wanted to draw, but nobody cared and there was no way to reach people. So by 2000, I was burned out. And I'm like, oh, fuck this. So I set the pencils down and I didn't really do too much drawing for, 20 years. Because what I did was what every normal, I got out, I met a lady, we got married, we got a family, we got a house. So cliched, were things, but this is what I'm doing. And I was searching for a way to express like my artistic ideas
Mhm.
because I would like look at my drawing table and just kind of growl. I was a little disgruntled or whatever. So I did music for a while and I, played in some bands and stuff and just did that kind of shit for a while. And then I got into writing for a little while. And then I really got into video for a while and I would shoot stuff and then edit it, and then like even the whole movies that I would shoot, I would cut down and edit with music behind them as if I was cutting, the newest, hottest film, because I'm a movie geek. So I always think of everything as a movie almost. So why not? Hey, I'm going to make my whole movies interesting. But I was learning how to edit, so that was just another creative outlet. And then everything kind of reached a head, like things were getting stale creatively. And I was just kind of, I'm the family guy and I'm working for a living and da da da. And my parents, God rest their souls, were really in bad health. And I knew they were at the twilight of their days. And they were really on me to draw again, and I would kind of, well, they really kind of made that their last wishes. And I was like, oh man. And I discussed it with my wife. This is where it gets good. I sat down and I was like, if I'm gonna like, I don't know. And she bought me some colored pencils, kind of baited the hook, and I'm like, ah. And her and I were talking. I was talking to her about it because I talked to her about everything. She's super involved and supportive of all this stuff. But I had said, if I'm gonna draw again, like it's been 20 years, so I'm probably gonna suck. And B, like if it's gonna be fantasy stuff, but it's gotta be something that I really like. And I felt the desire to showcase female fighters. I was like, that's gonna be my angle. And then and then I pushed it a little bit further by saying the first two ladies that I'm gonna draw, I'm gonna contact them so that if I ever decide to sell these things, like hopefully they won't sue my ass or something stupid like that. You know, and the snowball just started. It was Sarah Brooke and Carmen Valentina. And I started off drawing them, and they were really impressed with them. They actually have the first two drawings that I did of them. They have the originals of those. And I begrudgingly have the prints, but they have those. And from there, like I was talking with Sarah actually on a Zoom meeting. And because she's been so great. Like these ladies, Carmen and Sarah, and all these ladies I mentioned have been like ridiculously supportive of my little scribblings, and it's like,
Mhm.
holy shit. But I was doing a drawing then of a lady that I didn't know. And I was in the middle of it, and Sarah and I were talking on the phone, and she said, well, who's that? And I showed her, and she goes, oh, well, that's Jolene Hex. And I said, oh, it is? Like, I didn't really know who she was. Like, my whole world was so far removed from
So
LFC.
let's table this for 1 second because clearly this is one of the things that Sarah Brooks obviously is in a interesting field is the nicest way how to say
Fuck right.
it. Just beyond LFC. And there's a few others, and I mean, we can call it. You can call it what you want. I just want you to call it, and then I'll be happy to acknowledge it. This way, my parents, when they're upstairs, they don't kill me.
We don't want that. We don't want that. I
But,
mean,
but what was this like? Because obviously you're coming out of the 90s.
right.
And for those who don't know, and I'm a comic book guy, and Bagel Art was really done by Top Cow. And then Top Cow fell, and then a company called Zenoscope in 2004, and really, in my opinion, 2006, started picking up the torch. And
Right.
bagel art really has come back now, full force, where it was absent for
Thank
about
God.
6 years. And so, what was this like when you got back into it? Because it's gotten to the point I feel where more women are more accepting of it. Because back in the 90s, bagel art was sort of, I guess, a stigma where
Yeah.
guys loved it. Some girls were into it, but not as much. But today, I don't know, like, I don't know if you've been to a Comic Con, but there are girls who are like, oh my God, I want that. And they're like, and the guy's like, do you want it for your boyfriend? No, no. And the girl's like, no, I want it for me.
Right.
And so, what is this like for you? Because it's become massively less stigmatized. And I think a lot of girls like this stuff too now.
Well, I wasn't expecting that. I was expecting, again, like I kind of decided, well, I'm going to jump into this. And I really jumped into it not knowing what I was doing other than I'm going to have a good time. Like I'm going to showcase these female fighters, whether or not I get a chance for each and every one of them to see them. That's what I want to do. And I want to do it in a way that is different. Like it's kind of a nod at 1950s pinup art, and but making it fresh and new. And the subject isn't just some random model or whatever. It's like I had an arena, so to speak,
Mhm.
that I wanted to showcase, not realizing. And I thought, man, I'm really gonna get slammed. But my vote of confidence came from the fact that Carmen Valentina and Sarah Brooke were really enthused
Yes.
about the drawings that I did. There they are. There they are too. It's Diana, and then Carmen's was Venus. There it is. And they were really, really happy with those. And so that gave me a boost. I'm like, well, maybe the public won't like them, but the ladies that I'm drawing do. So that give me a little leverage. And going back to the Jolene Hex thing, Sarah was like, "Oh, you're drawing Jolene Hex." And I said, "Oh." And she's like, there she is. That was the drawing I was working on. And she put me in contact with Jolene. And we had a great meeting. And Jolene was just over the top about that drawing and whatever. And which just, again, just fueled my fire for maybe this is going to do something. Maybe people will look at it. Maybe they'll appreciate it. And it won't be used to line people's favorite cat boxes or something. And it was in that first conversation where Jolene was like, most of my photos that people draw from or would pull from or would draw from are LFC related. And then she goes on and on and on. I was like, what the hell is that? What is
You're not
LFC?
thinking of the Liverpool, football club, right?
I didn't know what the hell she was talking about. And during the conversation, I'm like, ah, like I knew a damn thing. And so I waited. It was like the day after, and I messaged her, and I was like, "By the way, what is that?" I never even tripped across it because I didn't. To be honest, I didn't search an awful lot on Google and internet and all this and that or whatever. It's just I have interests, but I don't spend a lot of time surfing for them. So it was just whatever. And I saw, she's like, "Oh, this is Lingerie Fighting Championships." I'm like, "What?" And I pulled them up, and her and I were talking, and she was like, this is really one of my favorite things to do, and da da da, and it's one of my things. She's into all kinds of stuff, but she kind of was that barrier breaker. And I remember contacting Sean, I think, or somebody, and I was like, "Hey, do you mind?" I mean, I don't even remember. I don't even remember how I put it. But it's just like I kind of want to do. I've been doing the drawings of Jolene and this person and that person, and you mind if I do a couple of drawings just because, I'm a fan and I've never even seen your stuff before. And what I got back in short was this flood of enthusiasm from Sean saying, this would be fantastic. I don't know what, I don't know what we're going to do with them. We don't really have, it's not like we have an art thing here, but you're an artist if you want to draw this stuff. And so I drew these things not knowing what they were going to do with them or anything. And they have given me I mean, before I started drawing LFC stuff, I had 30 followers, and 15 of those are people that I know down the street. And it's, for my part, being relatively just an unknown artist, the way I look at it. They've given me a huge platform that has just really generated to. I had Women's Mat Wrestling commission me to do a drawing last year, and I've done 2 drawings for Women Athletes on Fire, and just I have literally drawn ladies all over the globe at this
Mhm.
point in time, and it's stunning when I look back at this long
So
list of people that I've had an opportunity to not just draw, like, oh wow, there's a hot chick, I'm gonna, I'm gonna draw, but that you work with them, and ladies like Brooke Gilly, that where you have so much connection, they spell you get a flavor for what their likes are, what their dislikes are, down to stupid things like what they like to do. Okay, she loves snow stuff, so I wound up putting her in Snow Angel and made this just she likes blue and she likes this and she, so I was able to incorporate the stupidest things into one drawing that somebody will look at when it's finished and be like, wow, they did so much thought into that, because I don't want to just be a Xerox machine and just, okay, so and so wants a picture, boom, here's your picture. No, they come to me, they'll have an idea or something and I'll throw it around, or a lot of cases I'll have an idea and I contact the lady and I'm like, I think you're really, because now I'm going back to ladies that I've worked with in the past, and I've got a little bit of a rapport, and I can go, hey, if you kind of like that last drawing, if you thought that was kind of flattering, I've got a really cool idea, and I think you'd be cool for this, and what do you think? And then I just go back off of feedback, you know.
so to even dive into LFC and let's talk about Jolene because eventually at some point, hopefully I'll get her on because I think it'll be a fascinating interview on so many levels, on so many
Oh my
levels.
God.
But this is, I think, one of the first ones you did, and this is what's cool about this. And I'm revealing somewhat of the secret sauce a little bit. But this is the process, and it's interesting. I think even just seeing how the process that you do things also almost I guess time stamping it, and then this is the finished product. And so, what was this like? Because it's obviously fun. It's fall. It's not necessarily LFC, this photo in particular, but
Right.
that's the thing is that I think that at a certain point, I'm a comic book cover guy where you could put a pin up on a book, and that's great. But it's fun when you got something fun going on with it. There's an artist named Steph Wilson, and when a girl he usually does a regular cover and a nude cover, and he has these like cartoon bats, and there's only one looking at her when she's clothed, but then there's a whole flock of bats looking at her when she's naked.
Right.
And the idea is that adds an element of fun to it. So what is that like? Because this is kind of that type of photo I feel where it's fun, where you got the honey, you got the bee, you got her sort of in a very playful mood, and it's not just I'm doing just a portrait or a pinup of her.
Right. Okay, so that drawing in particular, and there's so many drawings you could just show up and I could just talk for on the story behind that was Jolene's second drawing. We've shown her first one, which was Ivy, and I had no contact with her when I did Ivy. So after that one, she was so enthusiastic, and I was trying to kick out some fall drawings that year before I got into a Halloween run. And because I was talking to her, I said, would you be interested in doing a fall piece? And of course she was just, I mean, Jolene was absolutely the best to me. I mean, I just can't praise these people enough for how they are to me. And she just enthusiastic, just, yes. And I said, here's my idea, because I had like titles out. I do everything by a title first, and then I get the idea visually from it. And so I was like, well, I've got this idea for honey, and she's like, I love honey. And I'm like, okay, so it's already perfect. And we talked about it at great lengths before I started working on it. And then as I was working on it, because there's the little jar on there that says Jolene's Honey. And my wife immediately was like, you better watch it what you put on there, because people are going to interpret all kinds of stuff. And I like broke into a sweat, and I'm like, oh my God. And I got in touch with Joe. Immediately, Jolene's just laughing at me. She's like, that's so funny. You keep that on there. I love that just because of that. And it was like the little cartoon bee on the shirt that was like a last minute throw in, and all these things. That photo, that was one of the first times that I worked off a photo that any lady actually said, I like that idea. I'm gonna take a picture for you that isn't on social, it's not on my social media stuff, so that the drawing itself is going to be super unique, because I do everything working off a photo. That's my cheat, because the shadows never change, the expression never changes, the look in the eyes never changes. If you're drawing somebody from life and they're going to blink for a second, or they're going to do this and they tilt their head, and that moment is lost. They're there, but that moment is lost. And so for me, I'm always after that multi-second of time, and photos allow me to do that. But so Jolene's honey picture was my first real artistic adventure, working with somebody who was just outstanding during the process, and it just steamrolled from there.
And even to go further into this, because one of the things, and I'm a huge Ink Master fan, and my favorite episodes, which usually produce the best and the worst tattoos, is going off of portrait day. And that means that you're going off of a picture, because some people understand how to use a picture, how to embellish a picture, how to copy a picture perfectly, and also get away with certain things on it and what not to do and what to do to it. So, what is that like for you? Because if you're working off of pictures, you know, I
Oh, you froze up there real quick.
think I'm back.
Okay. Almost. What happened was we were talking too much. Or Andrew has frozen up. There he is, though. I can see him struggling to get back on.
Am I back? I don't know. This is so weird.
There he is.
Hopefully I'm back. Hopefully I'm back. But as I was stating, some people and some artists can work off of a picture and some can't. And so what is that like for you? Because I think it is a real skill. And I think if you can do it, it's beyond beneficial. And so what is that like? Because this isn't the only one, as you said. I mean, you said it's kind of your cheat in a lot of ways.
Exactly. The benefit to being able to draw off a photo is that, look at the large list of amazing ladies that I've been able to work with because I draw from photos. Every lady that I've drawn is in a different state. 90% of them are traveling to every other state, literally 5 days a week, if not more. They're so ridiculously busy that if I'm lucky enough to get that little slot of time to work out a drawing with them, to get their attention for a moment, I don't hound anyone. I try not to hound anybody, but you get this drawing done, and then they've got it forever. I've had the experience forever, and it's a great, and it allows me to showcase every drawing is a showcase. So it's really taking, even like the honey drawing for Jolene, which was pre-LFC still. I hadn't drawn the image on your shirt at that point in time yet. And in fact, that was Jolene's idea. She said she wanted to be the ass of the LFC. That's
We
great.
can talk about that too, because this is the shirt. I think it's Jolene. It's Jolene's ass.
Yes,
I
it's
think we
Jolene's
can
ass
say
with
that.
the LFC tattoo on the cheek, and then waiting right behind her is the amazing Bella Ink, who obviously in my artwork I had a huge affinity for watching their fights, or I wouldn't have spent probably 4 drawings or something like showcasing that going.
Because this is the process of it. And so, what is this like? Because we were speaking a little bit before where these shirts are really limited, they're limited runs.
Yes.
It's risky to some degree, I think, for LFC to do a shirt like this. They're
Yeah.
really cool. And I'm going to showcase, I think there was 3 or 4 others in a second here. But what was this like? You getting the opportunity, the idea popping up, them saying yes, and then doing it, because again, whenever you do a shirt like this, it's bad girl art. It can go really well or it can go really bad. And it's not necessarily an art problem as much as, I want to say, and it's going to sound weird, a society problem,
Right.
where people in society may or may not appreciate it or may not get it. And so what was this like to even test the market? And I think it went well.
nerve-wracking to the absolute. Talk about sweating bullets. Now on the inside, and even if people go back to like my Instagram tweets or whatever, where I was tweeting about working on this project, it sounds extremely positive, and I'm confident. And I was sweating bullets and shitting egg rolls because I finally had contact with this company who was like, "This is going to be so cool. I can't wait to see what you're going to do." And Jolene came up with it, and I was like, "I need to do a promo." So what's funny is the drawing that's on your shirt in my head was never going to be used for anything. It was just going to be used for a promo ad saying, "We got this artist dude who's probably going to draw a couple things." And so here's like this segue thing that was never going to be seen like once and then never used again. I about died when I saw it on a shirt originally, because I was like, working on the drawing, okay, backing up, working on the drawing, because I was like, it was Jolene and her attitude about like the whole concept. Like I told her, I said, what I think would be cool is a visual where it's some chick's bending over, but the LFC logo is like tattooed on her ass. And she said, "I'll be the ass of the LFC." And I was like, okay. And that kind of like got ingrained in my head, like what I want. Okay, here's what I want. How do you have a serious conversation like this? But so now I've got this 11 by 14-inch piece of blank paper in front of me, of which 85% of this is going to be ass cheeks, where I'm used to drawing faces because there's eyes, there's a focal point, there's an expression you can get, there's a feeling you can get, and there's a way you can work with each person or bust or whatever. And now I've got this ass. And I can't describe how weird it was blending the different shades of this ass. And I know I was laughing and sweating and really thinking, I'm tanking the only opportunity I have for any company to look at me for a drawing, period. This is it, hands down. If
So
there's
let's
any
even talk
grace,
about that. Let's even talk about that, because this is one of the things. So I'm a big fan of a company called Zenescope. They do bad girl art. There's a guy named Ebass. It sounds like something, and it sounds like his name is what he does. He draws nice asses on very attractive women. But there gets to a point where when you start entering this sector, there's always the fear of, will I be able to do corporate work again? Do I want to do corporate work? What are people going to view me as an artist? And I think this is something that gets very tricky, right? I even think whenever, I enter into a more promiscuous territory, and then I'll throw something else out there too. When I start talking about crypto, there gets into a position where people have a certain thought of me. And so what was this like? Because now you're on a shirt, you're doing this LFC stuff, and clearly I think people are liking it, but it also always saying, look, what happens if the table turns, right? And so what is that like? Because I think this is something that artists don't think about. And it doesn't have to do with art ability, I feel, but it's always, I think, in the back of your head, because, and it's also, you don't want to be the guy who messed up the shirt too. And do bad girl art, if that makes any sense.
Right. Oh no, it makes perfect sense. And those are things that were in the back of my head. And to be fair, when I did that drawing, I had no idea that that was going to be on a laundry list of shirts that they were going to wind up doing. So once I saw that they did that one, the one you're wearing, as a shirt, my entire concept, there's Jolene and Bella, but the entire concept of the artwork shifted a little bit, because with that piece alone, Jolene's ass, God, maybe that's what it's going to always be called. But I wanted to build the anticipation for an LFC fight through that drawing. And I even stated in one of my posts when I posted that final on there, this is exactly where I want to be if I ever see an LFC event. And I just put that on there. I'm like, because that's got to be like the best seat in the house, right? So, And then when I saw they put it on a shirt, though, as an artist, okay, that's cool that they did that. But if I knew they were going to do it on a shirt, I started to change the direction, and I started to do spotlights of female fighters, and I started to just change a little bit based on what will people want to wear versus this really risque image that now has my name all over it and is being advertised. Get Tommy Bell's shirt with a big ass on it, you know. But the LFC never winced, nothing. I mean, they were just like, check this out, gang. This is so fucking awesome. And I'm like, all right, this is fucking awesome. And I there was a lot of backlash. When I really started drawing for the LFC, which was kind of after that first shirt came out, and really kicking out some, I had in my head a whole list of images that I wanted to see, and I'm lucky enough to be able to say that I did those already. I got those ones off my chest. But when I started doing that, like a lot of eyebrows raised privately at me, and then.
Let me ask about that, because one of the things is that, and I'm very honest about this, where when I was buying Zenesco books, and I always go back to this, they're bagel art. They raise eyebrows. My mom had questions about it, but then when she saw what I was selling them for, she sort of backed down a little bit, because if you buy something for $20 and you're selling it for 100, it's like, okay, maybe, you're doing something for a reason. And
Right.
so I'm really curious about this, where if you're getting backlash, do you think it was because of what you were drawing, or do you think that it was more because you're getting an opportunity, you're getting a cool opportunity, you're doing something that a certain percentage of society wants, and it's also a profitable element of society? It's not 1%. You're not doing something illegal. And do you think that was part of it, or do you think that it was just that people were just shocked and saying you really shouldn't go down that because they know best?
It was a stigma. It's a whole stigma that and I won't say society even in general, because society in general has proven, at least to me personally, where I expected in 5 years I'd have 5 followers on all my social media platforms, that I'm doing something that people will appreciate, which just sends me over the moon. But the backlash was from the sheltered society that I'm unfortunately in the middle of the Midwest, where you have 5 people per square mile, and 4 of those 5 people, wouldn't dare lingerie fighting championships or women athletes on
Oh
fire.
no.
What are you talking about? What do you mean? What is that? And it's just so aghast. But I had a really good customer service job that I lost because I wouldn't stop what I was drawing. This happened very quietly. I never get on social media and blast anybody, or no matter what they do to me. That's just not my gig. But I lost my livelihood and everything because of the content that they didn't like. And this was a job that had nothing to do with my artwork at all. I mean, there was no links at all, but they didn't like it. Somebody somewhere didn't like it and said burn. And so after 7 years of doing something, all of a sudden just me and my drawing table. And I'm like, oh, like, what am I supposed to do now? But I kept going. And literally, even that very week, there were some things that were done. Like, there was a lady that was affiliated with my old job who was doing all my professional scans of the final artwork for me in a method that I didn't understand. And my ability to post my finished drawing the next day was completely all of a sudden not there. Like, when I was let go of my job, like, all these different strings were cut, and I had to figure out how to do a lot of shit on my own, and it was really nerve-wracking. But it was seeing so many people jumping on board on social media, liking things, and the enthusiasm with each lady that I was drawing kind of continued to build. And I was stunned by that. So even though I was getting a real cold shoulder from some people, I was also getting a really warm embrace from other people. And people like my wife standing there as this pillar in between me and them, going, we have a very happy marriage. We're not weirdos or anything. And what is he doing that is so wrong? Like, he's showcasing these ladies that he likes the content and stuff that they do. The drawings aren't remotely, anything. Again, for me, I got a certain way of looking at stuff. So I'm like, I haven't drawn anything offensive. Like, what are you talking about? But beauty is in the eye of the beholder.
To even go further into what you've drawn, because obviously there's this shirt too, which is the Bella Ink shirt.
Bella!
And that's more of the spotlight type of
Yes.
thing. Then there's this one too, Holly May. And so that's a cool one. And I like this one.
And
I
Holly had a ton of input in her shirt, and her drawing design, because we didn't know it was going to be a shirt. Maybe she did, but she was, and I was really stunned, because when I did the Jolene, Hex, and Bella spotlights, which were the next two shirts to do, I didn't really bug them about it. I think I had mentioned to them both, hey, I'm going to do these drawings, and and that was pretty much it. But I didn't want to bug them, and everybody's busy, and you don't want to be a weirdo. I was just like, still nobody really knew who I was. But when I got to Holly's drawing, which was several months later, I messaged her, and just like I do everybody, hey, I'm going to do a drawing for you. I hope you enjoy. And if they get back to me, great. If not, I'm still going to do the drawing, And Holly got back to me like right away and was like super jazzed about it, and took a deep interest in what I was drawing. She's like, what's the background going to be? I'm like, she's like, here's what I would kind of like to see. I mean, she didn't take over the drawing. Holly's very, very, a very imposing force, and I love her to death. But she had suggestions about things she really wanted to see, and a really brightly colored sky. So go over colors. And she's like, my nickname is the Lotus. Can we put lotus flowers in there? And I said, how about if we put some water in it, and we'll put some lotus flowers in front, and da 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 da. So she was really every step of the way, bam, 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 bam. So, and that really showed. You start looking at like my portfolio of artwork, and like LFC related, all of a sudden hers is this flash of ideas and colors. And that's because she really got involved and wanted it to be something that maybe blew the other ones out of the water, which I never compare one of my projects to another, but it's one of my favorites. And
it's a lot more
colorful. Amazing.
A lot more colorful, as I was about to say. And then obviously we go into the next two, which I think sort of relate to each other. And this is the start of it. And it continuing in. So this is round, I guess, 1 or fight 1. I don't know how
it's called fight 1 and fight 2. Yes.
And this is fight 2, and I don't know that's jumping it. Oh, this is fight 2.
Yes.
There we go. And so what is this like? Because
I was in a creative tornado when I thought about doing, because I had done at that point in time, I'd done some spotlights for the LFC and this and that, and then I thought, what I really want to do, and this was on me. It's not like I have people on staff from the LFC going, we need you to draw this next. This was just me thinking in my head, and I was like, what I really want to do for them is something that I haven't attempted before, and it's 2 drawings. Well, a few people had asked me, could you draw a fight drawing? And I was kind of like, because then their faces are weird looking, and how am I going to get the action right? And is it going to look stupid? And so, like, when I first started, I picked 2 different photos from the same fight, obviously. Jolene and Bella, outstanding. And I started off going, okay, one of these is going to turn out and one of these won't, because I'd never done a fight drawing before. Well, by the time I started coloring in their flesh, I was already posting both of them saying, one of these you'll see in the end and one of these you won't, because they're both not going to turn out. And then after I had all their flesh tones in and the tattoos and miniature in there and stuff, I started to look at them and go, I think these are both going to turn out. And so now I had to, so then it fired a different idea, which was, A, they're both going to be different because one of them, there's some wardrobe variation between the two. Jolene removed some of her lingerie in between those two drawings in the actual fight that happened. So one, she's wearing this greenish leopard thing, and the other one, it's not there. She's just in a bikini top. And so there's a progression. It shows time in this fight that now I'm doing two drawings of. And I'm like, well, as an artist, what I need to do, there's a volcano in the background because I'm like, it needs to be explosive. So let's put a volcano. And I said, what I really want to do is in the first piece, the volcano's already erupted, but the lava's kind of coming down the hill a little bit. And it's not quite, there we go. It's not quite around the ring. And there's Jolene. She's still got like the leopard green stuff on and da-da-da. But so it's like, okay, so this fight's going on and this volcano's erupting. And in my artist head, I'm going, and this is where you'll love it. In my artist head, I'm going, there is so much fire between these two that not even Mother Nature's erupting volcano can stop this fight. And to me, that's a very exciting concept. So when I got to the second one, I really wanted people to, I don't know if it ever really pulled through or not, but in my head, I'm like, the lava's got to be like totally coming down around the ring. And there's little pits of lava rock that are like starting to actually burn the actual ring that they're fighting in. And there's more sparks in the air, and it's a little darker still, much more lava, and they're still fighting. And I'm like, the allure of those two images side by side, when I have those hanging up in my drawing room, it's just like I could stare at those two back and forth because it's telling a story that, let's face it, anybody that's watched that match on the LFC, and Michael Larkin will probably put his hands around my neck right now because I won't get the actual event right, but sorry, LFC gang. I think it's like LFC 25, 26, something like that. You guys can kick my ass later, but it's one of those, but it's that match was like, I could watch that thing day and night, and I probably did, which is why I decided to do two drawings on that and make it what it was. I just hope that when people look at that, like obviously the fight is way more exciting to watch than looking at those two drawings. Way, way better. But that's a nice side piece to that particular bout, you know.
It's a good fight. It's a good fight, and I enjoy. I really enjoy watching Jolene fight. I think she's fantastic. And it's really just a great drawing too. That's really what it is. And then even going further into this stuff, you're talking about, I think
Sturgis.
So and this one I like because I love Shelby. And Shelby's been on twice. She's great.
This was a time where I was feeling a little bit more brave because I had already done, obviously, two pieces side by side for the LFC. And so I thought, because as an artist, I'm always looking for a way to up my ante on things. And so it's like, well, what can I do with each one of these to make it? Because the Sturgis, this is a big event. It's a big 3-night event. I didn't have enough time to do 3 pieces, or I would have. But I don't just draw LFC stuff, so I'm balancing fantasy stuff and other things and and trying to bounce back and forth. So my ante up was by drawing 4 ladies on 1 page. I'd never done that before. Because getting a likeness down, even when you're working off a photo, that's where 50% of each one of these drawings is spent trying to make sure that you don't, one little shading mistake, one eye that's not right, nostrils, when you're drawing a lady's nostril, man, that's where your hand starts to shake. If I make this nostril wiggly or something's going to look like a hair's coming out of it, or I mean, all these things you think about. And so when I did those 2 Sturgis pieces, I gotta say that the ladies that were involved in those drawings, they were just outstanding because they were really excited about it. And at this point, by the time I did those, some people in the LFC were starting to take notice. Like, here's this goofy guy, and he's doing these drawings. Who is this guy? What is he doing? You know?
So talk about even that, because obviously there gets to a point where you have enough content, you're drawing stuff is starting to get attention, and obviously you had the shirts, but even still, some fans might not know, some people might not know, some of these women might not even know. And then what is that like when it starts reaching what I dub and a lot of other people call critical mass, where you're now at a stage where it's just like now everybody is asking the question, who is Tommy Bell? Who are these drawings by? What are these drawings? How do I get a drawing? And what's the story behind this? And then people start saying, okay, I know who Tommy Bell is. And even outside of necessarily LFC, but people start asking questions and it starts popping up on people's walls and things of that nature. What is that like? Because it's kind of the point where now people know who you are.
It, it's funny because you would think that the cliched answer, for me, it's not a cliched answer because my brain doesn't work normal. When right now I'm on a little bit of an artistic hiatus, so I'm doing a drawing for somebody very special that unfortunately we lost to cancer just recently. Otherwise, I probably wouldn't be doing any drawings right now at all. But I'm taking a little break to get a breather and launch into phase 2. But it when that started happening, I didn't go like, oh wow, some point like, oh my god. What I did was, because I always took it very personally, like this little heartfelt, like little nod. And I would just like make sure that I extended my gratitudes back to whoever it was, but not realizing like, oh wow, they're sharing this with all their friends and people that they know. Like my brain didn't take it to that level. So I was just looking at it from that singular, hey, this person was really nice. Which brings me to, it was still early on. It was in 2020. Well, no, probably early 2021, because my first LFC shirt had come out, and our buddy, my good friend, Mr. Michael Larkin, sent me an alert. I forget on what we were connected several different ways, and he said, "Hey, there's this guy who's got this podcast, but he's got your shirt, and he's got Shelby Paris on, and there he's talking. He gave your shirt a plug. Isn't that cool?" And he sent me this little 45-second clip that I pulled up and I watched. And I'm like, that's the coolest damn thing ever. And it sucks that it took so long between now and now, because I totally saved that clip, which I had worked into editing all these little clips of these people that Michael Larkin would take time on his podcast and start talking to these girls that I was drawing. I think that kind of helped the snowball too, actually, because it certainly wasn't me, but he's like, I've got so-and-so on, and Tommy Bell's done a drawing of you. Let's talk about that for a minute. And I'm like, Michael, thanks. Like, you don't have to do that, but thank, like, that you just gave me a platform, just like the LFC shamelessly gives me this platform to get followers. And again, maybe half of my work or a third of my work is LFC related. Betwixt and between that time, I started working with people, Lindsay Angel, who's a pro bodybuilder over in the UK. And her last name says it all, Angel. Oh my God. She was phenomenal to work with. And I get people requesting. They would message me on Instagram, especially, because I haven't been on Twitter that long. But on Instagram and hitting me up saying, oh my God, your artwork is so cool, and maybe they've got an idea or whatever. Like Lindsay Angel had an idea about being a guardian angel, and I just jumped all over that. But like Ty Emery, who's, right now she's over in Thailand. I mean, but she's all over the place from Australia. She's been amazing to work. I can't name my list. I'd be leaving people out, which sounds so stupid, but
So
Shelf
to maybe go further into that, and we're going to get to a little bit more LFC in a second here, but you mentioned something that's actually very interesting. And I was speaking with a writer last night, a friend of mine, for last night's interview, and we were talking about writing and how that if you basically dump everything you have in your first issue of your comic book, you could do that for the next one and the next one, but you're going to get burnout. And I think this is something that people don't understand unless you've created it and you create something that there gets to a point where you get burnout. And
Got it.
I've been there as a podcaster, and I'm now trying to figure out, how to balance it. And I'm doing an okay job. I'm not great at it, but there gets to a point where like I got no idea for a new question for somebody. And it happens a lot more, and it probably means I need to take like 3 weeks off. But what is that like for you to say, hey, look, I need to maybe take a few weeks off or even a month off because I'm producing art and I need to step away to just rest my brain. And it sounds weird, I guess, the way I'm saying it, because
No,
you're like, what do you mean you're resting my brain? I'm drawing something and I enjoy drawing it, but like, I don't think you understand. Like, creative ideas don't just come; it actually takes effort.
it's twofold. My little hiatus was probably long overdue, to be honest, because I was doing, if you look back at some of the timestamps on some of those, like I was finishing a drawing in the morning and starting one like 2 hours later, just so that I could kick out like a drawing every 8 days or something. I mean, and that was, I ran that gauntlet all of 2021. Started that way in 2022, but I was reaching burnout already by 2022 because even though,
I know the feeling. I know the feeling.
and maybe it doesn't show, maybe it does, but my own issue was that I started to feel that everything was starting to look the same. Like no matter how different the idea in my head was, or how different the lady's idea was, that I was still doing not the newest drawing that needs to be outstanding wasn't really hitting the mark, or it looked like the last drawing I did or whatever. And so I started thinking maybe it's a little stale drawing wise. And the other end of it, which was unfortunately a little more serious, but was that I got tennis elbow that I developed really bad. And of course I developed it in my right arm. So um, it reached a point where when I'm working on a drawing, it hurts to draw. It's this whole area and it starts to sting really bad. And of course, when it was diagnosed as being tennis elbow, I didn't let it heal right. Didn't listen to what the doctor said, and I, do my own thing because I'm a moron. So I did that, and I got my moron badge, and so my elbow still hurts. So if I slow up my process for how I'm going to kick out drawings, I don't have to do a drawing every 8 days for people to go, oh, here's Tommy Bell. He's doing something. I can wait. And even this hiatus has kind of shown me I could take a break and come up for air, not just physically, because you spend so many hours at the drawing table daily. You come out and it looks like you look like
You're like a pale kid who was the library kid in high school, right?
Exactly. I mean, it's that bad because art, everything that all these ladies do is very public. And when they're putting on a performance, everyone's tuning in. It's a very public thing. When you're an artist, everything is very shut off. You are so far behind the curtains when you're working that nobody sees anything. You're just pounding away at something for hours each day, and your arms throbbing away, and you got music blasting, or whatever. But nobody gets to see that. And it's funny because this will bring into a whole other thing, but several people have mentioned, because what I would get bored and I'd be in the middle of a drawing and I'd go, I know what I'll do. I will go on Instagram Live and I'll color for a little bit on Instagram Live. And I thought it was really the stupidest thing ever to do that. Because I'm like, what if I fuck up? Like right in the middle of it or something. Here's this drawing that not only am I posting the progress of, which is insanely stupid, because you never know how it's going to turn out. But then now I might as well just go live now that you're in stage 3, and I'll show you how I do it. I must be either a genius or a moron, but I decided that would be a good idea, and I did it like, I don't know, 5 times. The feedback I got on that was stupid crazy. Like, that's all people want me to do. Why are you doing? Why don't you have a drawing show? Why don't you do this? Why don't you do that? Why don't you da da da? Not that that's a terrible idea, but in my head, I'm like, I don't know if I want to draw like that. If you do it on Instagram Live, dude, you gotta be able to. You're talking to no one, right? Because you're just. Now, what are you gonna do, Bob Ross? I'm not drawing happy little boobies.
It's a little tree. Put a little smiley face on the tree. It's a happy tree.
Yeah, I'm drawing happy little ass cheeks. I mean, you can't talk the same way about that. So, but people said, I think even Brooke Gilly on Mike Larkin's LFC podcast mentioned that she thought my lives were highly entertaining and engrossing, or whatever the hell she said on there. And I was like, really? You don't have cable TV out there, do you?
There's so much I could go with that. I would make such a public enemy out of LFC.
We don't want to do that. We love the LFC. I love the LFC to death.
I really don't want to start a war with them today.
Not ever, but I mean, and just to affirm that, like, my affinity for them, the people that put on that production, everybody from Sean on down to Holly to all these ladies, amazing.
It's really a brilliant concept where the way I view it is a little bit different than other people, where I view it basically as Women of WoW meets, Bad Girl art. And it's the fusion of it. And it's just that. And I also like where they pull from, where they pull from a variety of different areas.
Yeah.
And you know what it is? People come in different ways. And you could come in from I guess more, I'm going to just say it, pornographic side is a nice way to put it. You could come in from a modeling side. You could come in from a wrestling side. And also, I mean, because they do have people who are professional wrestlers. They also have people who are models. And so it's a very interesting way that who's in there. You could come in because you could be a fan of custom wrestling, which is, Jen Thomas's thing. Yep. And so there you go. And it's a very interesting position because everybody comes in differently. And it's a really interesting fusion. So speaking of that, we're going to talk about this. The guy just transitioned right into it.
Danica. Oh man, I'll tell you.
I'm a sucker for girls who have pink hair because I'm an anime weeboo. I'm a sucker for it. I got no problem admitting it. So there you go. And redheads who do wear, and I also like redheads as long as they're not holding a knife. I'll be fine.
I'll be sure not to do a drawing like that so that I don't creep you out. But this drawing was so, I mean, number one, Danica was so outstanding to work with. Every lady who was in the LFC, and I mean every single lady, because I'm going to forget to mention names, but Jennifer Thomas, Veronica Valentine, all these ladies that I've had the pleasure of drawing have been amazing to me. Bella Madison, Bella Rockefeller, I could go on and on. Bella Inc., obviously. We get to Danica Della Rouge. There's Bella Madison. Danica had that outstanding color to her hair. She sent me, when I asked her, she sent me a whole bunch of photos. And in all these photos, she had that hair like that. And I was like, this is going to, all I got to do is pick one that I like. And it was so fun to do the hair. I couldn't wait to do the hair. And of course, I work in a certain order. So, I always work my flesh tones first. Well, I get everything in pencil. Once it's in pencil the way I like it, then I start with my very first post, which would be like just an ink outline. So it looks like a coloring book. And that's where I really tear into it then.
Yeah.
I look at myself more as a colorist than an artist. I don't know. I mean, you have to draw it first anyway, but my real fun is coloring it. And so I was like plowing through the flesh tones and just to get to that hair. And I spent so much time because just breaking out the colors for what you're
So
going to use
to
was
even talk
awesome.
about that, so obviously I've had one of the best colorists in the world on my show, Sandru Navagun. He's in the top 5 colorists. On everybody agrees in the comic world. Like the
Yeah.
guy is unbelievable. He's from India. He's one of the greatest colorists ever. And we were speaking about this, and a color can make or break something, without a doubt. Where you could have a beautiful drawing, and within seconds, if you pick the wrong color, you fuck it up.
Yep.
And so, what is this like? Because it's interesting that you say you think of yourself like a colorist, and I think that because when I speak to other artists, they don't think like that. And there's a bunch of artists who do not do their colors. J. Scott Campbell, who's a well-respected comic artist, doesn't do his colors. Now he has Neai, and you know who J. Scott Campbell is?
I have some signed Danger Girl comic books that my wife
Yes,
acquired for me.
yes.
I'm a Danger Girl absolute fucking freak, dude. And Jay Scott is the dude. Even though he doesn't do his own color. I mean, like, am we gonna hold that against him? I don't think so. He's doing better than me. Jay Scott
But
Campbell.
my point is that he has Nia Rafino, or he has, I think, Sabine Rich, and maybe Ola Moss. I think
Yeah.
it's those three, and then there's somebody who works with him every once in a while. Who's another one who I forget who it is. But the point I'm getting at is, I think Campbell realizes that he's not a good colorist per se, or he's an okay colorist, but why ruin his book? You
Right.
know, and so what is that like? Because I think that's something that people have to understand is that, and then we go to this piece, and I'm going to show it right again here. You have your purples and your blacks and some sort of whitish gray purple in there as well. And then you got that hair, and it works. And so what is this like? Because these colors all are in the same family, but they work. And you don't get to do something like this all that often. Unlike, I think with the other ones, you don't have that nice blend where this is something that's different. That's why I wanted to talk about it because I think it's so interesting.
This one is so cool because what I had was the undying support of Danica Della Rouge from the beginning. And here's what I'm going to hate to admit this. She patiently, more than patiently, waited. I'm going to guess almost a year for this drawing. And now that's patience on an unknown artist, but she waited a year. She even joked to me about it when I finally said, I swear I'm doing it right now. She was like, oh my God. But so I had her enthusiasm, sent over all these great photos, and I got it mapped out, and I had no idea in my head what to do for the background. None. And I put the ring in there, I said, okay, well, here's what I want to do. I want to do the post in there and and the rings and da da da. And then I sat there for hours just staring like a mental patient at this drawing, going, I don't know what to do with the background. Like I had no clue. And then I was looking at the colors and I'm trying to figure out, I'm like, well, I know that a dark background will look good. And because she's wearing this shiny black leather and she's got this great pink, vibrant, pastelish colored hair, it needs to be electric somehow. I just don't, and I'm like, try to do, I can draw lightning, thunderstorm stuff. And and even the clouds in it are a little bit vague if you look at it, because I was making up my mind as I was doing it what I was doing. So I literally did that background with not an awful lot of forethought behind it. And I worked from the bottom up on that one, actually. So the bottom is very simplistic scribbles. And when I get to the top, it's much more intricate. And like you got layers of clouds and stuff, because I was like, oh yeah, I'm doing a storm. So it just kind of fell together. But I had that, like when I start thinking about how I'm going to color and I'll stare at a drawing, because flesh tones is easy, based on their ethnicity or whatever, I break out my color palette for those and try and nail that as crystal clear as I. Because when you're showcasing a specific lady and you're getting on social media and you're saying that, if it don't look like them, or if it's too dark or it's too light, or if they're something, then it's no good because the spotlight's blown. So that's my first focus. And then once that's in, then I start thinking about what's the background got to be on this? Does it got to be brighter? Does it got to be, can I get busy with it? Do I got to keep it simple? And then it just kind of, I mean, my wife bought me this Prismacolor set of colored pencils that is 250 pencils. So I have no shortage of colors. It's just down to, and what I do is I take a scrap piece of paper and I put it next to my drawing, and I'll grab the pencils that I think, these are cool. And I always grab dark to light. Like I kind of pick a color scheme and I grab dark to light and I grab a whole fistful of pencils and I start scribbling on this paper. And if they don't blend or they don't work or something looks off or looks goofy, then I take that pencil and I go and throw it way back there. And I keep going until it nails down. And I'm like, okay, here's what I had in my head. Here's what the media is going to allow me to, I can actually get my vision close to being on paper. And then I don't do an awful lot of thought process to it. I know that like in that background, I think I only had 4 colors that I nailed it down to, where I was like, everything else is going to compete with her hair or with the black suit or something. And I just,
It's an interesting piece because, again, I'm a cover artist guy. And so I really like covers and I understand that that's what it looks. And this is not comics, because in a comic, obviously, you also need the interiors and you need a good story. But when you're looking at a pinup and it's a print or it's a t-shirt, the objective is that there's nothing inside of the shirt. I mean, obviously, hopefully there's a person walking around inside the shirt, but yeah, yeah, such a
there
bad
it is.
such a bad joke, so bad. It's just a terrible thing for me to say. But the point I'm getting at is that you don't read a shirt. You know what I mean? And
Right.
so, but it's that idea that you don't want the background to compete with the subject unless the subject is supposed to blend into the background.
Right.
And that's the objection of it and the objective. And so it's very interesting. It goes back to, I think, that understanding how to make something busy or not busy. We look at this one right here. This is a very busy piece.
God, yeah.
Right? And I think the background has to compete to some degree because it sets the stage. Versus with this, you don't want the background in this one to compete with her.
No.
And so
And I think that's why. And when I was looking at the backgrounds, like in the fight one, or the fight ones, there was a challenge of, well, it's always a challenge to try to get what I have in my head down on paper with what I have to work with. I wish I could just take the image and blast it into people and they'd go, "Whoa, that's way cool," instead of "Nice drawing." But with that one, it's like, how do I do the lava and all this stuff? And I've got them on this thing fighting. And so my elective was that everything around the lava had to be as black as I could get it, or as dark as I could get it. But I also wanted the sky dark, but then I've got the smoke in there, which is also black. And it's like, damn, so there's always a selective process of like, how am I going to make things noticeable, but not so competitive? And then again, when you have a drawing like this, it's much easier because you've got one main focal point. And even though there's kind of action going on in the background, it's more of an accent to the subject than it is a part of that emotion.
Yeah, and then obviously even going further into this, and you got Tomiko, and I didn't realize how old she was. To put it nicely, she looks damn good.
Tomiko is absolutely the best. She is another one. Tomiko waited very patiently for a drawing, and she was so nice. She came up, she asked me. It wasn't like I went, gee, I wonder which LFC lady, and like I'm gonna pick and choose or whatever, because I really don't do that anymore. But she approached me. Is so nice, and I was just like, wow, you want to be featured in one of my drawings? That's outstanding. And I was a big fan of Tomiko, so I was more than happy to do a drawing. And she again was the epitome of being involved. She started saying, as soon as I had the flesh tones done, she was like, I don't want to say anything too fast, but I think I need to buy this. And I was like, what? And she totally did. She bought a print of it when it was finished, and then on social media, she started a landslide of stuff that's still going on, which was she took a picture when she got the print. She was so sick, took a picture when she had the print, and then she told me, she said, I'm gonna have a custom frame done. And I'm like, wow, okay. And when she got it framed and hung in her office, she took another photo of that, just thanking me. And that's something that I want to make sure that I do is now, after her, Tomiko did that, which was amazing. Then Onyx, who I judged next to at the Halloween LSC event.
We don't talk about her. I'm sorry. We just are not wowed by it.
Hello. Onyx, Andrew loves you. But all these ladies started jumping in, taking photos of the artwork that they had gotten. Agatha Carter, Agatha Delicious, Holly Mae, Brooke Gilly, Andrea Christine, who's not at all affiliated with the LOC stuff. She did a wonderful thank you video, and they're just one after another. It's like I went on hiatus, and now I'm getting all these great pics and photos.
Isn't that important? In which that this is one of the things that I gripe about, but I think it's so important is that sharing things out and even thank yous. And when somebody in the comic world gets something of yours, it's like, when somebody takes a picture of it, it goes a long way and it actually means something. And I think that's, something that people have forgotten. I really do think people have forgotten that if you bought a print of something, then you hung it up and you have it like framed or even the original artwork, taking a picture with it is awesome. And I think
it's amazing.
And I think, it's the best social cred, I mean, we go back to the idea where, if a company advertising says, buy Coca-Cola, and I hate to pick on Coca-Cola, but I don't think they're going to mind. Or if I say, man, I just had the best Coca-Cola ever, who are you more likely to be influenced by, the commercial or me? Right. And I think that's the whole thing. It's obviously me because I'm your friend, or you trust me, or I seem like a decent enough guy and I'm not trying to sell it to you. So it goes to the idea that when somebody like, I can't think of, Shelby Paps, we'll use her, takes a picture with it, it goes a long way. And I love Shelby. That's why I mentioned her. But the idea is that it goes a long way. So I just think it's beyond helpful.
It's amazing. I mean, it goes farther than what these ladies think where they take the time to do that. It's such a report card and so great, and it's so flattering, and that's why I love sharing them then, because it was kind of like, and it happened at around the time I said, oh, I'm going to take a break for a little bit and catch a breather, and then you get that kind of stimulus back from people, sometimes expectedly, sometimes unexpectedly, and it just warms my heart. So to every lady that's done that, I thank you so much. My God, you ladies have no idea. Those things are my trophies. They're really my trophies.
So, and then the one more I want to talk about before we talk about something outside of LFC, because I think it's important, is this. Because she's the mother of LFC. Is the nicest way to put it.
Terry London. Terry London is phenomenal. I had extreme pleasure of being able to meet her face to face when I was at the Halloween event for LFC in Vegas. Just what an outstanding lady, as most of these ladies are. But she was, again, I'm going to start to sound repetitive here, but she sent me a photo. This was a photo that her mom took in her backyard. And so she was super excited about that, and really loved the concept of being in, she's a Vegas girl, so who doesn't want to be a poker queen? And I let her have her choice. I didn't have anybody else on the roster. I didn't think I was going to do any more. Maybe I will. But she picked Queen of Hearts, and I said, that's great. And again, we had it mapped out months before I got around to doing it, because my list just got so long that I was just like, oh my God. But she was outstanding and just really loved it, the drawing, and so on fire about it. I don't know how else to really say it, but just so complimentary, to me, about thank you so much for doing this. You really nailed it. When they say stuff like that, you're like, okay, great. They like it, and when they think it looks like them, like what Tomoko said, she's like, wow, artists can draw me, but he got it, then I go, okay, I got that one.
And then obviously I want to table LFC because I do want to talk about the opposite side of the country, I believe. And this is where this gets fun, I think, because this is something that people may not know about you, but you have a very interesting relationship with Don Cross Photography.
Yes. Don
And
Cross. Oh my God, yes.
and so I came into Don Cross in a very interesting way, where it just appeared on my Twitter, and then I started following a bunch of people who modeled and was involved. And one of the people that pops up is Whitney Morgan. And Whitney Morgan is a very interesting individual. And I actually love Whitney Morgan too, for a lot of reasons. But what's the story? Because this is the Whitney Morgan thing. This is the Whitney Morgan thing. There's something going on. It seems that Whitney is somewhat in a sticky situation, if you will.
She usually is.
You know what? You know what? I have no comment. I have no comment on that. I have no comment. This is a family fucking friendly show.
Yes, it fucking is. Oh, Whitney.
So what's the story? How you got involved with what he does, the photographies? I have a bunch of images that we're going to talk about, and everything in between. But let's start with Whitney, because I think she is the one that is arguably one of the most recognizable.
Okay, so Whitney, here we go. The first headline that we'll get to, because it's all around this drawing. I had this was, again, this was probably in the 2020s when this was. So this was very early on. I'd only drawn about 5 different ladies, maybe 4. Very nervous about talking with any of them. And I had just set up Instagram. And I'm an old fart, so I didn't really know how to use it. And she started following me on Instagram. And so I followed her back, and there was like no communication or anything. And then I saw a bunch of her photos, and I said, wow, she's so theatrical. Like, there's somebody that I really want to draw, because she gets in front of that camera, and the moments that are captured on time with that lady in front of the lens is just incredible. And so I reached out to her, and I said, you mind if I you mind if I draw you? And she was like, that would be an honor. Bunch of exclamation points. And I'm like, whoa. And she's always been just an absolute amazing lady. But I said, I'm really looking for something for Christmas. And she said, I've got just the thing. And I said, well, I work off of photos. And she goes, I got a photo for you. And that's what she sent. And I went, how about that? And so that was the one. But she I did the drawing. And after I did the drawing, it was posted on Instagram. And she reached out to me, and she's like, oh, you didn't tag Don Cross. He's the photographer, and he's the guy that I work with on all these amazing things. And I immediately felt so stupid, because that whoever's taking those photos, that's their material. It's not yours to grab and do with what you want. And that immediately sprung into action an idea. I need to contact this guy. I need to apologize for leaving him out of these things. Hopefully you ain't going to sue me over this drawing. I was I was shitting egg rolls that very morning that I got these meds. Like, and what an outstanding guy. We became fast friends very quickly. He was just, as soon as I started tagging him and stuff, like he was like, anybody else that you want to, I shoot with all these ladies or whatever. He said, your artwork's really awesome. Who do you want to work with? I'm like, well, Whitney's a favorite. I want to get her in some other stuff. And I think I featured her in about 4 different drawings or whatever throughout the
So
time.
let's even stop for 1 second there. What is that like? Because I think this is something that people forget. I mean, I'm gonna be very honest. People in comics are stupid sometimes, and I go back to some people in art sometimes don't understand copyright laws. They don't understand photography stuff. They don't understand. There's a difference. And look, you can buy a photo outright if you want to, but
Sure.
that's all contractually, dealt with. It also gets tricky because we're not going to go into photography law. I don't exactly know how it works with weddings and celebrities, but I'm sure that that's all negotiated how it works. But the idea is that, and the only reason why I know this is that my dad's a photographer, and it's his hobby, and he just came back from a trip to Africa, but he owns those photos.
Right.
So somebody can't, and there's an issue where he might be auctioning off a photo, but he's not auctioning off the rights. He's auctioning off the photo.
Right.
There's a difference between the two. And clearly, the point I'm getting at, though, is that what was that like, though? Because you're like, oh my God, this could end badly. And
Yeah.
I don't know how far damage wise, if there was an issue and how much he would have sued you over, but nonetheless, you also don't want to be disrespectful to somebody either. Forget
No.
about money. It gets a problem when one artist becomes disrespectful to another, I think. It's kind of like if somebody took a sample out of my podcast and they don't credit me, I get very upset.
Well,
And I'm
sure.
not interested in suing you. I'm interested in you acknowledging that somebody took a 30-second clip out of my thing and doesn't acknowledge me, or maybe 5 minutes, I get pissed off because that's upsetting to me. I deserve acknowledgments, and I deserve to be tagged, or I deserve a heads up.
Right. Absolutely. And I was sweating bullets. Thankfully, somebody was looking out for me because I crossed a line just due to ignorance, not due to I don't care. It's just due to wow, in the 90s, I didn't have to worry about this stuff, and it's a whole new world now that I'm
Do,
making
do,
all
do
these
you
connections.
also feel? Do you also feel though that it was just an honest mistake, and that some people understand the difference between an honest mistake
Yeah,
and because that's the other thing too, is that people have taken some of my stuff and like, oh man, I'm sorry. And I'm like, no worries. I think that it's the idea that there's some people who understand the concept of the word grace and understand the concept of a mistake and realize that also there's money to be made, because
right,
let's be realistic. I mean, your drawings draw attention to him and draw attention to the people he shoots with. And it's the same thing when somebody throws something and uses a clip of me and an interview I did, and then I get 5 followers. I'm not so angry
right, right.
because there's money involved. And I think that's the other thing too, is that maybe Don understands that you're gonna throw in business directly and
Well,
indirectly.
I would push it just a little bit further, and I'm going to, because Don is a great friend and a great supporter, and same thing with Whitney Morgan. I mean, they're just outstanding. But for those two especially, I mean, I was still in my infancy of like floating around. What the hell am I doing? And I just blindly stepped on their toes as a total accident because I didn't fully know what I was doing and hadn't looked at everything in the right perspective. And it was just magic that it was those two people, because Whitney took me right by the hand. And what she did was she directed me to Don Cross, which was outstanding. And the second thing that she did that very few people realize is she taught me Instagram. She's asking me to do this and tell me to tag this and do that. I'm like, how the fuck do you tag? I don't know what the fuck's going on with this fucking shit. And I'm an old guy. I'm trying to figure out all this stuff. Well, she taught me the basics to Instagram, which is why I'm now savvy. So thank you, Whitney. And Don didn't leave me hanging for more than about a half an hour when he got back. with a very nice response. And then, I showed that I tagged him and da da da. And we very quickly just became fast friends. And to push that even further, that drawing was done in December, about 2 weeks before Christmas or something. And by the time I got to my birthday, I wanted to recreate the movie poster from 1,000,000 years
Oh
BC.
no. Well, we got to talk about one more before that.
Oh. Ah, Devil's Food Cake. This was so fun. This was very few people realize that cake that I drew off of was a cake that Whitney Morgan baked herself and took a photo of. Damn straight. So it's very important that I got the cake right, because she literally legit baked this Devil's Food Cake in her own kitchen, took photos of the cake so that I would have them to draw off of. This one was fun because this was actually my second attempt at doing this. The first attempt that I had, I don't think either one of us were super crazy about. And then it was like I started getting into, like, we need a different photo. We need something different. But her horns, the coolest thing about that one, though, was that her horns were like super long. So they came out and they just went and just really arced up and were obnoxiously long. And then I said, I don't want to do that.
I know the photo. I do know this photo, and I'm going to plead the fifth. So if we were on Wild and Out, I would lose, is all I'm going to say.
This was a great photo to draw because, again, it's, Whitney has this habit of appearing in my portfolio with her tongue sticking out. Not many other ladies have that tongue sticking out in their drawings, but she, there's 2 for 2 for her as far as that goes.
So to now jump into the poster, and we're going to slowly inch in because we got this right here. And
yeah.
This is the pencils for it. Obviously that, and then this is it. And then this eventually turned into this.
Yes.
Sort of. I mean, they're separate, and then if you want to figure out, and obviously they're 2 different posts and 2 different drawings, but this is the predecessor, I think, is a safe assumption.
Well, they're definitely 2 different drawings, but they were meant to be married together for obvious reasons. And this goes to when I was doing my reimagining of the movie poster with just Whitney in it, off of the old Raquel Welch movie poster. I wanted to just reimagine that because I love horrible movies, and that's one of my favorite horrible movies to watch. And I remember looking at Whitney's look and her hair and going, the way she wears her hair is perfect for that. And I messaged Don. I sent Don an email. At that point, we were emailing back and forth. And I sent him an email and I said, if you know this movie, because he had a couple years on me. I'm like, if you know this movie, you can tell me I'm stupid or what, but like, I really want to do this. And I really want to use Whitney in this. And he thought it was a great idea. And he said, hey, I'm shooting with Whitney in like 2 weeks. How about if we shoot that photo for you? And I went, really? And he's like, we'll do a bunch of stuff. Because I've also got a Dara Jordan coming in that day, who I had seen here and there, and I was really interested in drawing because her hair color was she's got a look that I just wanted to draw. And so I said, well, then do me a favor. Take a couple photos that duplicate the original movie poster so that I can recreate that poster. And then after that, do one with her and Adara, because there's a famous theatrical cat fight in that movie that's just outstanding to watch. And I've seen interviews with those 2 ladies, both of those, Martine Bestwick and Jesus Christ.
You're on your own on this one because I have no idea this movie.
Well, I've seen interviews with both of these ladies who were in that movie, and that was their favorite scene to do because it gave them something to do instead of just dance around and be in the background in these bikinis. So there was this great fight that happened, and I said, I need the stare down to that, where 2 women are facing off, but there's nothing thrown yet, no throwdown yet, but they're clearly in that uncomfortable space. And I told Don, I said, I want to do a stare down series where I showcase different ladies in that moment of, oh, something's going to happen, because artistically that's a really fun moment to draw. And in each one of my little stare down ones, there's a little shadow in the background. That's me standing in the background checking it out and watching it. But this was the second Whitney Cave Girl drawing that I did, and at that point Whitney had more tattoos on her legs, so I had a lot of tattoos in miniature to do on her, because she had just had some fresh ink done right before those drawings, or the photos were taken for the drawings, and she was really, really very happy that I spent the time I did to make sure that I got her tattoos as accurately as I could. Because again, you're doing these things in miniature, in colored pencil, almost impossible to try and do. And you're praying to God that you don't piss off some tattoo artist who actually did a really cool tattoo.
Yeah, and even dive into this because obviously talking about Adara, and I know who she is too, and I'm also going to plead the fifth on that. And so that's this here, and then I think this is her also just
Yes.
in just same. I think it's the same image, right? It's just
Yeah,
one
that's
is
just different stages of
yeah.
the goddess of storms, who I thought was very fitting for that. And it was really fun because I was able to, she was already in the photo, she's wearing this wonderful gold lingerie thing. What I hadn't anticipated was, what was really difficult about this drawing was, this was one of my first attempts at doing see-through black nighty lingerie, whatever you want to call it. And it's like, black colored pencil is really fucking unforgiving. You either the black is there or it ain't. And I had to invent, when I did Holly Mae's LFC drawing and this one were the two drawings where I had to really invent how to do that. And I did it on a finished piece that I was showing people how I was doing it. I'm like, I don't have the foggiest fucking clue. But that's what came out.
Yeah, because it's really interesting, and obviously this goes into the goddess entire collection that you have, which is
Yeah.
nice to some degree because obviously you have other collections that are just not LFC. It's not promiscuous the same way. This is definitely fantasy oriented, God oriented. It's recognizable. You might not know the model, but you get the sense that okay, cool. We're in the realm of Rome or we're in the
Yes.
realm of Greece, or we're dealing with
Yeah.
the gods. So it's very interesting when you have that out there. But just like everything else, this show definitely goes not safe to work. In case you didn't know, we are definitely not safe for work. This entire interview, and I don't know about you, man, but this is the part where Snickers signs up for a commercial saying, "You're not yourself when you're hungry. Have a Snickers." Right all over it. I mean, come on. You need the money. Come on. I mean, this is Snickers next ad. I'm just saying. Think about it. Do you know how many bars they would sell?
I'm
I
telling
mean,
you right
they
now.
could have Jagger in the commercial too, if they would like.
Oh yeah, for
That's
sure.
a dark joke right there. That's a dark joke. And just ask Mr. Jimmy. His favorite soda is Cherry Red. Yeah.
This was such a fun drawing to do. Like when I did the first drawing of Adara, which was because she's been in 3 of them now. I didn't realize that until just now. I did the Goddess of Storms, and then we did this one, which is Eye Candy, which the placement of the candy was crucial for me coming up with something that was. When I did this drawing, and I was getting with Adara, and she was like, "Yeah, that'd be really cool." And I told her, she sent a photo, and I told her, "Here's what I want to do. It's going to be called Eye Candy." And she was like, "That sounds kind of cool." She really dug it after she saw what I was after. But I wanted to, again, it's that feeling that maybe what you're doing is getting stale, or somebody's going to be able to predict what that next drawing is going to be like. And this was again another opportunity for me to really push the envelope And this was done at a time where the job I had at the time was being compromised, if you will, and so I had a little bit of I just had a little bit of fire behind my pencils and a little bit of more attitude about things, and it shows sometimes in some of those stuff. It's like, if you're gonna stomp me down, then I'm gonna show you what my next drawing is gonna be. If you really don't like what I'm doing, you're really gonna hate this one. And I love this. Is still to date, this is one of my favorite drawings. The finished piece on this, where all the candy colors are in there, and I had somebody comment, of all things, about how her glossy torso lingerie turned out so realistic. I was like, that's what you know.
Yeah, I'm just gonna plead the fifth. I really am.
You're doing a
I'm
lot
just
of
gonna
pleading
plead
of
the
the
fifth,
fifth there.
and that's okay. It's okay. Sometimes you can't always get what you want, but if you try, sometimes you can get what you need.
Get what you
That's all I'm gonna say. Just ask Mr. Jim. That's all I'm gonna say at that point. Somebody's gonna get that joke, and if you don't get the joke, I'm just gonna say, think about it long and hard. Or have a
Oh wow, definitely. But that was another fun drawing to do, and it was just every drawing that I've done, somewhere there's a story behind it, no matter how ridiculous it is.
Oh man, I should get you, Justin Hampton, Steph Wilson, just the three of you in a room, and just sit back. And oh my God, it would be a field day. It would be like the greatest interview of all of like 2022. I'm just
Let's
saying. I'm
do
just
it.
saying.
I'm on
So
board.
Steph Wilson basically does all this like new school, big boob girls, and Justin Hampton is like a rock and roll poster artist who's been doing it forever, for like 35 plus years. And then you are just doing this. It'd be great. It'd be great. It'd be like just like a basket of artistic talent. And then I'll bring Sanju Navagun on. And it's like the world's greatest colors. And I'll just sit back and just be like, have a conversation. I'm just gonna say nothing. That'd be perfect.
I think
Maybe
I would be a
the
bit stunned to be able to say anything in that kind of company. Like, oh my god.
No, it's insane. I mean, it's arguably, it would be the greatest conversation. It would be the greatest conversation. And then
One I'd love
this
to
is
be a
the
part of.
final not safe for work photo I want to show before I show something somewhat peaceful and wholesome. Not that it's going to make a difference here in this entire show. I mean, it's clear that I don't give a fuck anymore. It's crystal clear. And you know what it is? My views are going to go up. It's great. But anyway, what's the story behind this one? Because this is fun too. And let's just say I would love to have a drink with her.
Oh, Sushi Yvette. Another one of Don Cross's regular ladies that he shoots with. Again, Don is a master of what I still look at as pinup photography. He's an absolute genius behind the lens. Go follow my buddy Don Cross he's on Instagram. Look him up. He's on Twitter. Check him out. Give him a follow, definitely. Along with all my LFP friends. We'll get to that in a little bit before we close up. But this drawing was okay, when you talk about coloring, this one was I still wonder on this one if I hit the mark or if I didn't hit the mark. Because what I was after was, Pool Party was the name of this drawing, and Sushi loved the idea of being a mermaid. The tail turned out very different than a standard mermaid tail, in that it was super slender and serpentine looking, and just different. But that added something different into it. But when I
Oh
got
man.
when I got to the
This is
sky, when I got
That's
to the sky, I was really confused about what colors to use, and I didn't want to go super bright because I wanted it to feel like an evening at the pool party, or like the sun's kind of starting to set. So I chose orange because not a lot of people will use that as a primary background color. Like, I'm gonna use orange, and I was like,
Oh
so I
man.
did.
I have to be very honest. I didn't view that green thing has a tail. I viewed it as like an inflatable palm tree. Like it's not even me being like mean because let me explain. I saw like the red thing and it looks like a floaty and it looks like a little bit like a heart. And then I'm like, man, that's like an inflatable palm tree. And then she's standing in there. And then I sort of viewed like the green just to be like the water. And I viewed this thing entirely different than how you presented it. And I'm like, she's drinking, she's got alcohol, there's a beach ball, and she's just like a girl in a pool that doesn't have her bottoms on. I'm like, this is kind of a fun, photo. Like I viewed it completely different than how it was supposed to be intended, and that's what. Now I'm looking at it, I'm like, man, that's interesting because, and it's not even that it's drawn bad. Like I was just like, man, this is kind of fun. Like it's a gigantic inflatable, like squishy palm tree in a pool, and it's just like it breaks up the background because you have the trees, and like that's how I viewed it. And I'm like, man, this is like a cool piece of art. Like I didn't think it was her tail at all.
Which is funny because that's what I love about art is people will take out of it what they want, not necessarily what I intend. And to be honest, this tail I was not a fan of, but I had inked it and started working on it before I could do anything about it. And so the only thing I could really do was finish it. And I thought it was neat that it was more slender, but then the more I was working it through, this is one of those drawings where, and again, I'm in this thing where you do these drawings and you're almost doing them in some format live, in that people are watching every step of everything that goes on. And so if you do something and it's not quite right, what are you going to do? And so for me, I was like, well, I'm going to finish it. I like the idea that it's a more of an inflatable palm tree than a tail because it looks more like an inflatable palm tree.
No, it looks like I just viewed it. I'm like, man, this is fun because I viewed this not as a mermaid. I viewed it just like a girl in a pool, and the green stuff is sort of bubbles,
Yeah.
and it's something, and maybe it's like a drink or like something like is pushing up on her, but like the point, like not even sexual, but like I didn't view her as a mermaid. It didn't even cross my mind.
I like
I'm
your
like,
idea better.
because it's just like, and I'm like, oh cool, like the green really plays off of the orange and it breaks up that background, and like it's kind of like a little goofy, the background, and I kind of like how we have a very serious sexy girl, the pool's serious, but then we have that little fun beach party stuff going on, and it's like like that's how I viewed it. Like maybe as I'm reading too much into this, I don't know, but that's just my view.
I love that you are. I love that you are, because if something that I put on paper for one moment in time gets people to think that deeply into it, then I'm hugely flattered. And Sushi has this look, and if you follow her on anything, you know what I'm talking about, because she has this super serious, piercing look was just so I was like, I really need to draw that. And so I actually prefer viewing this drawing more the way you look at it than the way I was looking at it, because it does make it a little bit more fun.
And also the thing is that what I like about this is that you have the orange against the green, and orange and green typically go together. You have the red against the green, which go together. You have her in a red bikini, and then you have the blue against the orange, and you have her cocktail essentially that's more blue, and then the hard alcohol and the ice is sort of dark and it's not forefront centered, but the beach ball is there. And that's what I really like about this too, is that I think that the colors are very basic, if that makes any sense, where there's no like obscure pink, right? The most
Right.
obscure thing I think this entire thing is her green hair is the only thing that is a little bit out of the ordinary, but it's not overly saturated, And so that's the other thing too, is that it's really basic on colors, which I think also helps. And that's why I'm playing it more in a playful way versus how I think you intended it or how it's drawn, because I'm like, it makes more sense that you would have an inflatable palm tree.
Yes.
That's deranged to some degree, for lack of a better word. Like nothing against your art, but like that's all I'm gonna say on that point.
I'm forever gonna view it that way now, dude. I'm never gonna look at it like that's her tail again. That's an inflatable palm tree. It makes the drawing better when I look at it that way.
I mean, I absolutely love it because it's just the way I view it. And maybe, you know, maybe I was in a more playful mood when I was viewing this, but maybe that's just it too. But I digress. I digress.
I love
I do want to show two more things. Something old school from the vault.
it.
I love military stuff and I love dogfighting. Not animals fighting, but military dogfights.
Plane
Top
fighting,
Gun
right?
shit. So and I love the way that you have a dog doing this. One of my favorite movies is a movie called Skycrawler. And it is all about, dogfighting in planes, and it's brilliant. It's an absolute before anybody attacks me, we are talking about airplanes shooting each other with machine guns up in the air,
Right.
not Michael Vick training dogs. I want to make
Right.
that crystal clear.
Yeah.
But this is old. I mean, this is from the '90s, and this
Yeah.
is like my style, technically.
I will be pulling more stuff out like this. In the 90s, I would kind of jump from doing a female drawing to personifying an animal to something that was like really stretched out their fantasy, whatever. This drawing was a lot of fun because I really wanted to do a dog fighting drawing with a bulldog and the whole World War II like helmet on and stuff. And I immediately started the drawing by tilting the horizon. I didn't want it to be, like if you're doing a drawing of a dog fight, in my head, I wanted to see the ground so that I could get a basis for how things were tilted, because that gives me an access then. So I purposely just threw in this background that was already off kilter, and that let me throw my action in then, which is where the entire drawing is at. But I had so much fun doing this one, and I did a lot of research on World War II planes, not because I wanted to do a technical drawing, because I'm not very good at mechanical and technical drawing stuff. It's probably best left for somebody else. But I wanted to make sure that the pieces and parts that I put in there were accurate or they look like they should belong there. And I got it even in the 90s where I said I didn't really get a lot of attention. The little attention I did get, I really got on this drawing at that time.
I just like it. I love how it is. I'm a military guy. I love military stuff. My favorite things to read are military things, both graphic novel wise and other things. And obviously, I worked in military organizations down when I was in DC, so I have a very very soft spot for that. So I love this. I love this entire concept. I love the vibe of it, and I even love the style of it. And it really does scream '90s, which is just fantastic. And I think one of the things that I think is also really cool about this is the '90s are now starting to make a comeback. So
Thank
stuff from the
God.
'90s are really really vibing. No, because it's my generation. I'm
Right.
29. And so now every 29-year-old and even people who are like 35 are like, man, we want the 90s stuff now because we're having kids and we want to introduce our kids to what we grew up with. Not to mention that we realize that 2010 sort of sucks.
Right.
And so the 90s, what everybody was bitching about in the 90s was pretty good. It was pretty good. So I'm
The
just
90s
saying.
were pretty outstanding, dude.
So I'm just saying on that point, but like what came out in the '90s? The Backstreet Boys were sort of in the '90s. The Spice Girls were in the '90s. Celebrity death matches in the '90s. South Park started in
Everything
the
cool
90s.
was in the 90s, man.
I'm just saying. I'm just saying. I think people would happily go back to the '90s right now. But anyway, but anyway. Um, and then the final one I want to show is this one because I think this is awesome. I don't know who was the model for this. I don't really care so much because it's an amazing drawing.
This is one of my favorites. This one, I was worried about it getting a little busy. I've drawn this lady twice. This is the amazing Tina Rochelle, who has now gone on to more of hairstyling and stuff. She's kind of pulling away from modeling and getting into more hairstyling stuff and all that kind of thing. But she was in a drawing that I did in 2021 called Exposure, where she's got some film wrapped around her, very little else, and some spotlights, like some movie spotlights. And I thought that was a very simple drawing. So I wanted this drawing of her to be much more involved. Um, that kind of thing. So in this drawing, I definitely, and I told her, we had a discussion about it, because she very much likes fantasy stuff and fairy stuff and things and whatever, and took a whole bunch of photos for me to work off of. And I said, I want to give the illusion, and it's kind of hard to do when you're working on a square piece of paper, but I said, I want to give the illusion that you're smaller. So I want to make the flowers and stuff around bigger, but it has to feel like spring. It has to feel, the whole drawing has to, it's going to be greens or something, because it's got to feel to me like late spring so that it's proper. And, I said, I don't know what I'm going to do with the rest of the coloring, but I know I need greens in there. And so I just had at it, and I had so much fun putting this one together, because I'd never done a fairy drawing before, and yet fairies are all over fantasy, and I needed to do that. So it became a challenge, because her hair again is this bright pinkish pastel color, and when I elected to do the wings in almost the same color scheme, I started to sweat a little bit. I was like, oh no, I'm gonna blast everybody out with this pink. But somehow, and I don't even know how. I'm kind of the guy who did it, but I don't know how everything else balanced it out so it's not such an eye punch. But it did turn out really good. It's just one of those ones where when you finish it, and you like, I put a protective spray coating after everything, and that gives you time to let it dry and soak in without having a pencil in your hand what you just did. And this is one of those drawings where you finish it and you're looking at it and you're like, damn. Like, I don't like to poke up my own ass, but this was definitely a favorite. I was like,
It's
wow.
one of those things where every once in a while, and I think this is the best way to describe it. I do a great interview, and I know I slam that interview. I know that I hit every point to the T. It happens maybe once or twice a year where I do a perfect interview. That doesn't mean that it's going to do a million views. It means that it is perfect to the T. Now, that doesn't mean that if I didn't hit every point or something didn't connect per se, it was a bad interview. But sometimes, and I'm just like, man, I don't mean to brag, but like that was legitly perfect the way it started and it ended, where I was just running through it perfectly. And I would imagine with something like this, that moment happens too with you, right?
Yes. Yeah, it was, you stop, you do a part and you stop and you're like, damn, that really, like, it didn't fight me. The way I gauge it is how difficult it was for me to do, because the blending, I'm really smashing one color into another color, so it's always a science project. And sometimes I'm working, people won't be able to tell when it's done, but sometimes I'm really fighting with a lady to get her right. She doesn't know it, but I'm really fighting with her. And sometimes it just falls like spreading melted butter. And that's how this drawing was. Like, I remember every stage of doing this one, because it was just working for me, man. And I was like, whatever comes out of this in the end is gonna be worth it. Like, this is cool. Didn't fight me.
It's good. I mean, I like this one. I figured it's the best place to end with your art, on that front. But obviously, I am curious before I give you a chance to self promote yourself. Where do you see art and pinup stuff going? Because there's a lot of companies in the comic realm, and even in, I think, graphic art and T-shirts and things like ArtStation and DeviantArt and Instagram, where pinups I think are becoming bigger than ever. But where do you see it going? Because you're in that space along with also this bad girl and also, this sexy woman art, for lack of a better word. Where do you see it going? Because I feel like it's going through, I don't want to say generation three, but I think it is sort of generation three at this point, where the third generation of this is now coming about. And it's kind of a very interesting thing. And that's just what I'm seeing as a fan of this entire, I guess, style. So I'm curious how you see it.
I I would like to think that maybe I'm a small, tiny part of a renaissance for that kind of art. There's clearly people who like it, people who enjoy it. Um, I look at it from the stance that it's just what I like to do. I did it in the 90s and nobody liked it in the 90s. It's just like beating a dead horse. But now I'm doing a total different reaction. And because of that, and like I have a lot of artist friends on social media. Hi, everybody. And they're amazing. These people are just doing some amazing stuff, and a lot of these people are delving into a pinup style. It's not exactly the style that I'm doing, which is great because everybody's doing their own thing. I don't want people drawing like me, and I don't want to draw like somebody else. But I'm noticing this gravitation towards a much more pinup art style, tackling topics that maybe they wouldn't have tackled before. So even if I were to lose both of my arms and I can't draw anymore, I'd be like, you know what, someone's going to pick up that torch where I left off. And the art world's going to see a renaissance of this kind of drawing. I'm happily still have both arms. So I'll be contributing to that push forward because I literally have so many. The list is just ridiculously long. There's ladies that I will probably be featuring that I've never shown before. There's some that have been featured 5 and 6 times in my portfolio that are going to be coming up eventually. And I'm going to kind of continue my artistic break until around Halloween, because Halloween is like my fucking holiday. And I have already secured, I'm not going to say too much, but around Halloween, I'm going to be jumping back into my normal artistic avenues with a lady that I've drawn who's a fantastic supporter, and I'll leak more information about that later. But we just
So are you participating in Inktober?
no, no, not.
No. Do you know what Inktober is?
I have not a clue of what that is.
Inktober is like an art challenge in October where everybody in comics just does massive like Kickstarters and pushes out a lot of art. And it's like a big whole thing in the entire comic and art world, apparently, where just like every project drops in October. And so it's like a big deal. And there's just a lot of stuff going on, and people are sharing art. And like there's like 13-day challenges that all come about. And it's just a blast. And it's like a big party on the internet.
I am so blind to anything.
It's like there's no money to go to it. You just join a bunch of groups. People throw out challenges, say, "We're drawing a witch today," and it's great. And then everybody just like does it, and it's just like a one shot, and you have a blast, and everybody's sharing their art. It's a fantastic time, and people are commenting, and people don't share art, and they're not sharing. They're like, "Dude, that's awesome." It's a great.
Check that out. I gotta look into that because I didn't even. Oh, I'm so blind to the world that's like directly in front of me. Sometimes it's just scary,
That's a little bit. I do want to give you a chance to self promote because I know it's going to be like at least 10 minutes of people you're going to mention. So, self promotion, whatever you want to promote, whether that's you, somebody else, whether you want to, LLC. If you want to tell Jolene to be on my show, that's cool too.
You know what, Jolene, please, why not hop on Andrew's show? I don't have a show for you to jump on to. But Andrew definitely does, and I hope all these ladies that I've mentioned today, just in passing, and I know I'm going to forget a few names, but there's so many. First and foremost, the LFC. What an outstanding company. So everybody, if you're curious at all, if you're not curious, I don't care. You got something that you got to do for me, and that is you got to go follow and like and hound and just absorb all the content of the LFC. Now you can find the LFC on Instagram and Twitter. It's LFC Fights. Look them up that way. That's the real deal. LFC Fights. You got to go follow them there. They are also on TikTok. Look up Lingerie Fighting Championships on TikTok. They also have a page that you can check out on Facebook. So they are all over the place. I've mentioned Michael Larkin, who is the LFC podcast host. Check him out too. He's on Instagram and he's on Twitter and Facebook. And check out Michael Larkin. Check him out too. All these ladies from Jolene Hex, that's HEXX, Bella Inc., BELLAINK. Sarah Brooke. I could go on and on. Whitney Morgan, we talked about her. We talked about it. Dara Jordan. We've talked about Shelby Paris. We talked about Brooke Gilly. We talked about Comico. The list keeps going on. All these ladies are on social media. So I don't have, I would take me 800 years to read through every single name. Onyx, who I had the pleasure of being a judge next to at LFC event. Holly May. All these ladies, all these companies, Women Athletes on Fire. We didn't really get a chance to talk about them. Women Athletes on Fire, another amazing company run by Jennifer Thomas. You check out all these companies, show them love, show Session Girls some love on all these social media platforms. You guys know how to do the searches even better than the old man here. So just go do that. And then if you're so curious after that and you really need a good laugh, look up Tommy Bell Art. Check me out on Facebook, Instagram, and now on Twitter. I'm still kind of a new kid on Twitter. But check me out there. I'm always posting something stupid. I know I'm in a little bit of a hiatus right now. So it's kind of like, well, what's he up to? What's he doing? Don't worry about it. There's things doing. There's going to be all kinds of craziness that you haven't even seen yet. And I'll probably start showing more of my 90s stuff, kind of break that out of the vault and start showing that whether I want to or not, just to let people be the judge.
Well, I'm just going to say this, and I'm going to keep saying it. You have to support people you appreciate, people who you want to see their art with, people in that regard. If you like what Tommy does, you need to support it. And the way you do that is buy the prints. If he has merch, shirts, anything that Tommy is selling, you need to support it and you should buy it. And you should share out that you bought it, whether you're buying it directly from LFC, whether you're buying it from Tommy, whether there's somebody else who you deal with, I'm not exactly sure. But again, or if you want a commission or you want an original and you have it and you're willing to sell it, all that stuff matters because you have to actually spend money with people who you want to see their work. Because let's face it, if you don't support and you don't support with your money, that stuff disappears. It's just the way it works. And I hate to say it. And then furthermore, let's say money's tight, or it is, whatever's going on, or you're maxed out your credit card, I don't know what's going on. You need to follow on social media. That means Instagram, Twitter, Facebook pages, sharing out interviews, checking out what they're doing, checking out the companies that they work for. Big deal. It means something. And actually engaging on social media. So liking something on Instagram is a really good way how to engage. Following somebody and liking somebody on Instagram or retweeting something on Twitter goes a long way. And so I really recommend that you do both if you can, but at the minimum, you follow on social media because it goes a long way. It really does. And then as far as I'm concerned, I'll keep it nice and short. Obviously, I appreciate everybody who likes and shares this stuff out. It means a lot to me. I appreciate that. Check out my Facebook page, Pop Anime Comics, Instagram, Pop Anime Comics, Twitter, Pop Anime Comics. If you feel so inclined and like what I do, and speaking about support, I have Buy Me a Coffee. So you could buy me a coffee, which is basically a way, it's like tip jar. So you don't have to, nobody has to do anything they don't want to do, but that's one way to help me out because it does help keep this show active and get some cool stuff. Also, you can send me free shit or you can hit me up for an interview. I'm more than happy. If you want to solicit me, I may or may not accept, but my DMs on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook are open. So you can bother me there. And that matters. Or if you want to advertise on this show, that's up in the air too, as well as I do have a comic book investing class coming. October 5th is the date. Again, I'm trying to keep it for $40. It's going to be 22 hours. So, I think it's a pretty good price point for 22 hours of me teaching you the basics. But again, enough about that. I may or may not have an update on October 5th, and I might be somewhere. Hopefully, I'm going to get it. I'm going to find out in the next few days. But I'll let everybody know if I'm going to be at an event. That is going to be a very cool launch party for me. And I promise I will stream it live if I get there. But I digress right there. Enough about that. I don't want to jinx myself. Tune in tomorrow, 8 o'clock-ish. Cool interviews dropping tomorrow. I'm not going to say who it is on that realm. But on that note, I'm going to give you the final word.
My final word is going to be, hey, everybody, thank you very much for listening to this extremely long podcast. I didn't expect to talk his ear off this bad. Andrew, thanks for having me on the show. All you guys out there watching the show, follow Andrew. Just follow him, support him, love him, all that good stuff. He's an outstanding guy. thank you for having me on the show, Andrew.
Oh, thank you for coming on. I'm super excited, and thanks LLC for sending me a free shirt. So I absolutely appreciate that too. And on that note, everybody, I don't think I can top myself. So that is a wrap.